out that for a week. So that's something that I'm just considering. I wanted to make the board aware of if there were any thoughts on that. Okay, so work is starting on the Torrey Dam and Bridge project. H.E. Callahan is performing that work for us. H.E. Callahan is the same company that did the Maranacook Lake Outlet Dam, and they did fantastic work there, and they've done a great job down here as well, getting that project started for us. They identified some issues right off that related to the Torrey Pond Association portion of that, the actual dam piers. Rather than repair, they're looking at full replacement. Those are pretty well down to rubble at this point, and all the steel is out, and they're just replacing everything and doing really a full replacement, which is right considering the level of deterioration. That structure has no rebar in it. It's old enough that it has no steel. And I'm amazed the bridge is holding up as well as it, sorry, Bill, as well as it has, considering that those wing walls don't have steel in them. That being said, we do have some damage. It's not what we thought it was. The area under the bridge is actually in better condition than we thought. There's some light scouring, but the wing walls have some real efflorescence and some real rot in the concrete. So we are changing our scope slightly to repair the wing walls and do less work under the bridge proper. So a small change in scope, shouldn't be any change in cost for us overall.
So you're still talking about the wing walls being concrete versus like a steel sheet driven in?
Right now they're concrete, so we're going to be excavating the rotten concrete and forming up new material to put it back.
It's not cost prohibitive. Steel would last longer and be better, and would solve your scour problems.
Well, I'll ask H.E. Callahan to give us a price on that. They haven't started putting anything in place yet. They're still in demo, so I'll ask for a number on that. Thanks, Ralph.
Once you drive them in, you're done. You're not forming. You're not pouring. You don't have a cure time, but it's different types of equipment to drive it in, and then of course you got to cut it, and it might be for long term better than concrete if it's doable and the cost is similar.
All right, yeah. Make a note on that. So cost.
Are you almost set?
All right, so that wraps up maintenance and infrastructure, unless there's any other questions on that. Moving on to transfer station, Sunday summer hours at the transfer station were a smashing success, as Dennis Price would say.
Yeah,
we had a amazing response. After just a couple of weeks of having our operation in effect, we had 120 cars in 4 hours. It helped make it safer for people to be at the facility, made it more convenient and comfortable. So a real improvement, and I'm looking actively at doing that again next summer, if not making it a year-round thing. I'm hoping we can do a survey to judge some interest in that. But from what we saw this summer, people would really like to have an extra weekend day to go to the transfer station. The new MSW compactor is continuing to be broken in. We've had to make some adjustments to it as far as the height and some of the hydraulic components, but that's expected. It came from the factory and we had to do some fine tuning. So that's ongoing, but we've got it pretty well figured out. I expect we'll have one more visit from the company that installed it to do their last checkup and adjustment, and then we should be good to go for hopefully another 10.
What's the length of our warranty on this unit?
2 years. It started off with 1 year, and then we had, as I noted, they had some issues with the settings from the factory, so they added an extra year for us.
Okay.
So that was adequate given the level of issue that we were dealing with. Let's see. We're going to be rearranging some of the waste and material handling bins at the site. A lot of the stuff that's in the middle near the brush is going to be moved around. The tires, the propane, the paint care bins, also the propane. We're going to rearrange those, make them a bit more organized. The green waste, green leaf waste is going to be moved closer to the brown waste so they can be together where they belong. right now they're separated and we have to take the backhoe and move them over, and it just doesn't make a lot of sense when we're going to be mixing them together anyway. So now they'll be adjacent. Another big change is the apparel impact bin that was, we were neglected to be mentioned in an article recently about that program. We were one of the first in Kennebec County to actually adopt that. And people don't seem to be aware that we have that bin. It's a clothing recycling bin. It's wonderful. And it's going to be moved right beside the e-waste container. So when you drive up, you look right at it. And that should help increase the utilization of that service and get more clothing recycled. Any questions on transfer station?
Can you mix cans and bottles?
I have.
Okay.
I think that there may have been some in the past. It certainly helps the bottle guy if you do that, but it's not a requirement. We'll take them anyway. We get 5 cents a piece, whether they're sorted or not.
And that's that big bin, you just have to have them tied up, right?
They have to be in a plastic bag or some kind of container that's not going to fall apart when it gets wet. But no, they don't have to be sorted. But if you're feeling really nice,
I got about a dozen bags on orange. I can sort from here on out.
I just bring them in. Yeah, you're good.
Just it sounds like, I mean, I'm just happy that the transfer station, I love these summer hours. I love that stuff. It's just, it means a lot when the flow, the waste must flow.
The waste must flow, absolutely. And that does bring me to a point.
Hopefully down.
Yes, amen.
We do have somebody regularly collecting bottles again. During the pandemic, we had to kind of put the brakes on that a little bit, and we were limiting what we took in. Bring it all. It all goes to the fuel assistance, the heating fund that we have for local heating assistance. So residents are very much encouraged to bring in their bottles and cans to the transfer station. We'll take them, we'll get money for them, and it goes to help your neighbors stay warm. So.
Great.
A couple other items. October, we will be holding the first all staff meeting since the pandemic started. We've avoided that because of just the way things have been going, but it's time to finally get everybody together again, and I always look forward to those, and I think it'll help with operations overall. And the last point I have is that the beach this summer, they're getting ready to wrap up. People are rolling up their blankets and heading back to school. And the staff there did a fantastic job this summer keeping residents safe and dealing with a challenging situation. So I want to thank J.C. Greeley, who was our beach superintendent, and also our 2 attendants, Morgan, I always forget, Boynton is her last name, I always forget that, and London Putnam. So they've been working pretty much all summer to keep us safe, so I just wanted to thank them for that, and that's my report.
But you are looking for someone to help with fall leaf cleanup.
Yes, that's the very last thing.
So let's put that plug out there. If anyone knows someone who wants to be hired.
Yeah, we love high school students because they have some flexibility, and especially with the odd schedule this year, and a lot of people doing stuff remotely. I think that there might be some more opportunities for that than there were in the past. But if we have an adult that wants to do this work, we're more than happy to do that as well. Really, all comers welcome.
Any questions for Eric on his town manager's report?
It was speedy.
Yeah, it was
Wow.
great. So many good things. Thank you very much.
Do we want to take Lee out of order?
Lee, are you here for a specific item on the agenda, the construction, or? Okay.
In case you
and-
have additional questions about the fire station project,
Okay.
when we get to that.
We're going to get to that fairly quickly because that's an old business, so we'll get to, that's just old business.
Holy moly.
Folks, I do smile under this mask. Okay, we'll move on to public communication. Are there any members of the public who would like to address the select board on any topic? And we do have, I think, some people via Zoom or did, but the microphone is open. If you're here for other specific items on the agenda, we wait until that time. Okay, we'll move on. I skipped ahead a little bit here. Boards, committees, commissions, and departments. The Age-Friendly Committee minutes of June 10th, 2020 are in your packet, and these are available online so people can look at what these committees have been doing. The Trails Committee minutes of May 25th, 2020 are also in the packet. I did read that one of those committees met via Zoom, and maybe both of them did. I did not. I don't know. But I do want to encourage different committees that do meet in town, if they wish to use Zoom, please do make that arrangement. And you actually should use the Zoom account of the town if you're doing a meeting that is a town meeting, a town committee meeting. Moving on to appointments, reappointments, resignations. Mr. Oliver Richardson is not here, I'm assuming.
No, he did confirm.
Let's just talk about this just for 1 second. I have been somewhat curious about what the rest of the board thinks. We usually interview people in person on their first initial appointment. We don't do it on reappointments, but again, in deference to COVID, the COVID situation, I think we should perhaps either discuss waiving that policy in some instances, although we might not want to do that completely, or at least offering the opportunity, now that we can do it, to interview people via Zoom. What's the board's pleasure on that? We're not voting on anything, just
Yeah, I think if we
Consensus.
if we can make it easier to volunteer to do good in our town, I'm all for it.
I'm with you. If-
Okay.
I agree.
Yeah, if they're going to offer to volunteer and they fill out the application, do we really need them to come in?
well, I think it's a good introduction. I mean, and if we can invite them via Zoom to make a call in, I think, unless we find that becomes some sort of obstacle, why don't we start with that?
Yeah.
I'm happy with us just waiving that policy until the governor is done extending the emergency orders.
Yeah,
Yeah,
That would be a good ending.
of that, yeah.
Okay,
Here,
that,
here.
that would be fine. I would draw an exception perhaps on the budget committee and the planning board, that we would probably have a little bit more robust discussion on those committees, but we could take that as it comes, and I don't think we have any. So why don't we take a motion on that, and we will vote to waive these, and then we can proceed with tonight's appointment of Oliver Richardson.
I'll make a motion to suspend our policy for an initial interview for a new committee member, except on the planning board and budget committee throughout the official pandemic time.
Second?
And the official pandemic time is defined as the governor's declaration of emergency. That has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor? In your packet is the appointment of Oliver Richardson to the Recreation Committee, and he illustrates his interest in the board and what he has, not the board, but the committee and what he has done. He's got some youngsters who he would enjoy helping and having an impact to help others. So I think we should move, and I will move, that we appoint Oliver Richardson to the Recreation Committee for a term going to, where's the term?
6/30/23.
6/30/23. Thank you for the assistance. So that's a motion on the floor.
I second that.
It's been seconded, moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on that appointment?
And also, I mean, you know, they have to come in, and I'm sure the rec department knows Oliver. I'm sure all the kids, you know, parents and things like that. So thank you for offering up your time.
Plus, these are
Just
rec people
one
there.
question as to
Yeah.
what openings remain on that committee, or is it now at full level, full strength?
No.
I believe
don't
that's
know.
full, but I'll
It's
check
a
on
large
that.
committee,
Yeah.
and Eric could get you that answer.
Well, it's not.
I think it's like a 12-person committee.
Yeah, it's
fairly
a
robust
bunch of
committee.
folks.
Well, if we're
If they
close,
do a
that's
lot.
good. If there's still a significant shortfall, then
Then,
some attention needs to be paid for more
Yeah.
improvement, I guess.
yep. Okay, thank you. And actually, we would not have the next person normally come in, and it is the appointment of election clerk. These are forwarded to us from the
Did
two.
we vote?
Oh, no, we didn't vote
We
yet.
did
Oh,
not
let's
vote.
vote. All in favor of that motion? Thank you.
From what I just checked, there's no vacancies after this one.
After this one.
Oh,
Do you
great.
know how many people are on that board? Just, did you notice?
I have only like 9.
9. Okay, it's a big one.
It's one of the.
Okay, and so the ballot election clerks are appointed by party and they're used in alternating fashion at election times. And so we just pro forma usually appoint those. We don't have those folks normally come in. So we have Kim Whitman as an appointee to be a ballot clerk. I would move that we approve the appointment of Kim Whitman as a ballot clerk.
Second?
Go ahead.
It's been moved and seconded to make that appointment of Kim Whitman as a ballot clerk. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Thank you.
Bruce, I'm not sure it's entirely necessary, but it would be helpful to have a second motion for the actual full roster of ballot clerks. Kim's the
Yes.
only new one since the July election, but I think it would be helpful to just clarify that that is belt and suspenders mode.
Okay,
No
so,
one issues.
Yeah.
great. We'll go ahead and do that. The names are in the packet, but I think for the record, I should read them. For Democrats are Greg Durgan, Karen Peterson, Thomas Moloki, Christy Hutchinson, Mary Dennison, Andrews Tolman, Brenda Lake, Susan Tolman, Milton Wright, Bonnie Harris, Martha Soul, and Kim Whitman. For Republicans, there are Marilyn Palmer, Grace Keene, Sandra Rourke, Sonia Clark, Catherine Woodsum, Steve Woodsum, and David Bagley. So that is the roster of ballot and election clerks. And if I could get a motion to approve that
I
roster.
would move the slate as presented.
I'll second.
Slate has been moved as presented. You will notice in terms of discussion, there are more Democrats than Republicans. They're used on an even basis when they are used at an election. So it's really giving Deborah a larger group to appoint to use on how many she needs for a particular election. I assume she's probably going to use quite a few this next one.
Absolutely.
So it's been moved. Did we have a second on that?
Yes,
Yep.
me.
Yes, we
There
did.
was a second. Thank you. Any discussion on that?
Yes, I
slate?
have one point of discussion.
Please.
Where is the voting happening?
Let's
We're
talk
gonna get
about
to
that
that next.
in next.
Never
Let's-
mind.
Yeah, let's go ahead.
Okay, yeah, great. That sounds great.
So
Love the
these
slate.
are-
Yep.
Voting?
People waiting.
We got
for
to vote?
appointment. So all in favor of that slate? Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is discuss the local COVID response, and part of that was to talk about elections. So I'm going to turn it to you, Eric, and you'll tell us a little bit about our local COVID-19 response for a couple of minutes,
Sure, yeah.
and then we'll have some questions and thoughts.
All right, so really nothing new for routine operations since last month. We had sent out a memo in August that established the interim protocols as we try to maintain traffic flow, masking, and face coverings at our various facilities. No real changes there. The one, I did include 2 orders from the governor in the packet to reference a couple of things. One, that it has been extended through the end of October.
I thought it was October 2nd.
October, yeah, so how does it work? The executive order goes to the 2nd, and then the meeting component goes 30 days after, is that
The
right?
meeting component goes 30 days after.
Okay, so Catherine's absolutely right that the order.
No, excuse me. The signing of warrants goes for 30 days after.
The remote participation,
I don't
signing.
think that goes 30 days.
That doesn't, okay, all right.
I believe it's only the warrant signing.
I will double check on that. I guess my point here was to show that there has been an extension
Right.
of that through October 2nd at a minimum. And given the pattern, we don't know what's going to happen next. The other executive order, which is the one that relates directly to the elections, gives the clerks a number of relief valves and some guidance and some support. And I just want to say that Deb has been working very closely with this and with her peers to set up an election that is as transparent and convenient and functional as possible given the circumstances. We have ordered a absentee ballot box for outside of the building that will be in mid-October. We do also have a drop box right now. It's just small. It's the size of a regular mailbox. And with the amount of absentee balloting that we expect, given the 75% absentee at the July election, and the fact that a lot of those people are probably going to repeat, and then some more additionally may, we're going to have a lot of turnout. That was a record turnout in July. We're going to have a record turnout in November, and so we're doing everything to prepare for that. That being said, the location, we can. Okay, that was interesting. We, if necessary, we can and will hold the election here at Guile Hall. The reason we can't do the RSU school is because they're having school all day on Tuesday.
Yeah.
However, we did reach out to Kents Hill School, and there is a fairly good chance, we're waiting for a confirmation this week, that we can hold the election at the Alfond Arena, which has a staggering amount of parking, incredibly wide halls, traffic flow. We would be in the gymnasium because the ice is down on the hockey rink side, but that gymnasium is more than enough space for us to spread out and probably double the number of voting booths that we could have here. So we are prepared to do either. And the only difference, in my view, would be that here we would have a slightly slower queue if it came to that, because we just wouldn't allow as many people in the building at once. So our preference, obviously, is to have this at the Alfond. It's all on one floor. It's wider. It's better. So that's something that we talked to the headmaster about, and he had a lot of confidence. He said if it was unilateral, it'd be done, but he wanted to talk to his team about it. So that's that.
Yeah, I mean, I would heavily encourage that. I have been concerned about having the election here at Guile Hall. I really just didn't want to be the photo on the front page of the Kennebec Journal of a line going out and around the block. And, we do have limited parking here. So the parking is also part of distancing because it crowds people in different avenues and passing one another and so forth. So I'm glad you talked to him.
Yeah, and the stairwell.
If there's something we can do to help make that, or a follow-up phone call of appreciation.
You need an alumni to speak to.
Alumni,
Yes,
I mean.
yes,
many
yes,
of
they
them.
love those. They love those.
I'd like to make that, I'd really like to make
Periodic
that happen.
Yeah.
And if that means we need to call for more volunteers to make it happen and double a number of opportunities for people to cast ballots at the same time, I'm very strongly in favor of that. I can't speak any more
you're
forcefully about it.
very, very clear in your support of
Okay.
that. And I think that the election in July was a fantastic dry run for us, and it worked very well. The clerk and staff did excellent. We will be pulling in more municipal staff to support this in November because we know we're going to have more turnout. So doing everything we can on the day of election and before, we are going to be doing a number of things that the governor allows in here to expedite the process, especially the absentee balloting, making sure that gets taken care of as much as possible beforehand. And then the day of, we're dealing with just the remainder. That was one of the things that kept us there very late in July. And so if we can move
Are
through
you
that.
allowed to enter them then prior to?
Yes, that's
Okay.
7 days, and so the plan
Okay.
right now is to do it on Friday, the 30th of October, which is just 2 days ahead.
I think that's excellent.
And it'll probably take all day, and I'm one of the volunteers.
Yep.
So thank you. and
It was fun.
Deb's really on top of it. And
No, I
can't
mean,
say enough about that.
I'd love to see Maine that evening know exactly how it voted. And so the governor has helped make that a reality, so that's good.
Yes.
Well, you'll know by morning the next day anyway,
Yeah, well,
because
there's
everybody
always
has to vote
Portland
by
and
8.
Bangor and the big towns that can,
Oh,
yeah,
but
screw
they're
it up.
more automated, so.
Yeah. We'll see.
Yep.
Great.
So any questions from the board or the public on our coronavirus response generally, or the election component of that specifically?
Ballot counting. for the stuff that's mailed in and absentees. I read it, it's probably in there, but can we start counting early?
That's what we're doing.
Yeah,
Okay,
So it's 7 days is the allowable time frame. So the Wednesday prior,
okay,
you can start. And Deb's plan right now, it isn't in stone yet, but is Friday the 30th, because that leaves 2 days in advance. So then you have Monday and then Tuesday. So anything that comes in after Friday
After that.
morning will get counted on election
on
day.
the regular day,
Right.
okay.
And just to be
And
clear,
it's all
yeah.
open to the public. Anybody can come and watch, of
Mhm.
course. It's
And the
it's a
ballot
public-
clerks will be there as well.
Uh, Do those results get published
No.
or they do not? Good,
They
okay,
get fed into the machine.
okay,
So how absentee, and I know this is important to people. However they arrive, but in Maine, we only have absentee balloting, which means that you have to ask for your ballot. You have to sign for it. You have to sign when you return it. And then the ballots are opened by a Democrat and a Republican, and the ballots are put into their respective boxes. And then the actual clerk of the election takes them and feeds them into the machine. And the machine is not tallied or closed out ahead of time.
okay.
So the machine will retain.
So it's just keeping a running tally
Right.
Yeah,
And
but it
then-
doesn't even give you a readout of the run. I mean, all you know is
Until
how many ballots
polls
are in that
close.
box.
Until polls close, and it's all under lock and key anyway. I mean, it is now, and it stays that way.
Thanks.
Well, thank you for that explanation. That's excellent.
As
Um,
of right now, we have 426 ballot requests.
Wow.
But I was very surprised with the inverse in July, so we're best to be prepared for.
Here.
Well, I think you may see it last forever, because people have realized that whether there's a pandemic or not, you can do it at your convenience
Yes,
within the parameters that the government sets up. And as long as it's all safely monitored, I think people are very comfortable with it.
If you're
So,
looking to enhance turnout and participation, this is certainly a good thing.
Well,
Absolutely.
yeah, the
Yeah.
turnout is
So,
much better.
it is a lot more work than someone just showing up
Sure
with
it
a
is.
ballot, though.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
It is
Yeah.
probably 4 times the work,
Mhm.
but that's not the issue.
Okay, so I'll go ahead with a segue right now.
I said you.
And that is that part of our COVID management in town is certainly the fire department, and they have done an excellent job in keeping trained and as best as they can. And I've talked with Lee just informally, and I'm just really impressed with how we're trying to manage and protect the force so we can field the right number of people when it comes time to do something that needs to be done in town. And on occasion with wind, it seems, we get a lot of practice. So that's a segue into the fire station and library project update. So I'll let Ralph and Lee and Eric discuss this for us and see where we are.
May I just ask a question on the last thing? I think when we did the summer election, the select board actually authorized using the elementary school. And there must have been a time limit on that. So Eric, did we have to do that, or was that just something that we did as a board?
I think that's something we did to highlight that fact and that change. It may be worthwhile this meeting or maybe in October when we have a firm answer, confirming that and authorizing that use of that polling station. But I'll talk to Deb about it
Yeah, I
as
would
well.
do it in October.
As long as we meet however many days in advance it is.
Right. I would hope by the first October meeting, we would know.
I'll let you know as soon as I do in any event, so.
I'll be asking you daily.
Oh, boy.
Please continue with the library and fire station buildings project.
I do assume you didn't mean range food inducting, but you meant range hood inducting.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
And that wasn't necessarily you who typed that, but somebody did.
It was probably me. I'm known for typos. I am. But okay, so included in your packet is just a really bare bones single page document that shows where we are financially with that project, with a few items highlighted in red, at least for those that have color copies. If you don't, what it boils down to is we are very near the end of this project. We have had, over the course of the project, a number of change orders to address unforeseen work or additional work that needed to be done. And we've had the pandemic, which has changed some of our revenue projections, and also to some extent, the cost of the project. So I guess what I'll summarize and say is that we have sufficient funds to complete the project as planned, more or less, no matter what. We have some unknowns that are still out there. The range hood is identified as an unknown, but that's just because the cost is unknown. We've actually already committed to that.
It's there on the floor and they're
it's-
getting ready to hook it up.
We can't do without it. And so that one is in
Big
process.
range hood for a kitchen range that's an electric stove. Mhm.
Well, you can still catch grease on fire on an electric stove.
Yeah.
Can't
I
say,
thought we had been told it was 5,000 and now it's 15,000. Was it 5,000 at one point?
I don't believe so. I think it's always been in that range.
Wow.
There's a lot
no,
of
it's-
stainless steel there.
And the sprinkler system also?
So just to finish the range,
Oh,
it
I'm
is
sorry.
stainless steel. It comes with an ANSEL system, fire suppression system. So it's compliant with code for a commercial building. That's what we have to do. We didn't have any choice unless we weren't going to have a kitchen. So that one we were on the hook for. And it did cost more than we wanted it to. I think originally, when we were looking at this, you may be right, Catherine. I think we were originally thinking we could get a residential model that would be a higher end residential model for 5. However, that did not meet code and we weren't allowed to do that. The other code issue that's come up from, and I've mentioned this before, but I want to say it again, from when we started the project in 2019 until now in 2020, when we're wrapping it up, there was a change in the code for the state of Maine. They went from the 2009 code up to, what is it now, Lee, 2018. That change drastically altered what was required for fire suppression for the 2 bunk rooms that we have in this building. Oh, do you want to go to the microphone, Lee? You can, if you want to correct me, you can do it from the microphone.
Hi, Lee.
Hey, what's happening?
You're on TV now.
Yay. I think the range hood actually was affected by the
That's right, too.
2018
So
code.
those 2 things were changed with the code.
Yes.
Can I ask for a point of clarification here in terms of process? I want the record to show that it's my understanding that, we did our bidding in January. We got the bids in January. But the final plans, the finished plans, not the conceptual stuff that went to the state fire marshal's office, did not get there until May. Is that correct?
That sounds right, yeah.
Okay.
May
Well,
20th to be exact.
Okay, so therein lies the problem. Well, the baseline problem, if you will. Because if the plans have been filed, the final construction documents have been filed in a timely fashion, this point would be moot.
Very likely, yes.
So
We would
I
be
think-
on a lot firmer ground, at the very least, in pushing back with more vigor than we can right now.
Yeah, and I guess I can't disagree with that. What I don't want to do is look back and
Right,
try.
well, I just want everybody to understand
Yep.
that the plans as submitted did not call for this. And right now, what we are trying to do is circle the wagons, come up with acceptable alternatives in a virtually finished building, which will cost us more money, that, in my humble opinion, will not make the people in those 2 rooms any safer than they would be without the additional paraphernalia. And we're talking about alternatives that will require us to get into basically a finished building, disturb things, and they're not going to make it any safer. I think the time has come with chief's blessing and advice to take a firmer position in regard to what the town feels we ought to be doing. We're certainly not advocating putting a structure in place for emergency service providers that will make them in any way or shape be exposed to enhanced risk. That building, as it was designed, is eminently safe for its intended purpose. And I think the time has come to state that fact and see, I'm not sure that all of this has gone up the chain of command to the head of the fire marshal's office. I think a lot of deputies are looking at this right now. And I'm not sure that the person in charge who would ultimately bless the whole thing, if it got to his or her desk, knows anything about what's going on. And frankly, we're looking at significant sums of money that limit our flexibility for completion of the total project at hand, AKA the building across the street. And I'm tired of throwing money at this thing with the hopes that somebody in a deputy position at the state level will bless it and say, it's okay, when we really shouldn't be jumping through these hoops to begin with. My personal opinion as a single member of the board, I want to make that eminently clear because I know Eric and Lee have tried to accommodate the situation and work within the parameters that have been laid out for us, but it seems to be a moving target. Every time we think we have a solution, somebody says, no, you got to do this instead. And we seem to be at the mercy of an arbitrary, ill-defined process that just is costing us money and compromising, to my mind, accomplishment of the entire project goal. And that's,
And we're not talking a small amount of money here.
No, we're not.
Talking about another third of the overall project cost, in excess of $200,000. This is a gigantic amount of money.
$200,000 for what?
Is
Yeah, that's
that
not
what
what
you
I
told me to put in the whole building
We're-
fire system?
Yeah, we're not being required to do that at this point.
well, we don't know.
Well, and I guess that's one reason, Ralph, why I don't want to, I mean, we've talked about this a lot.
Yes, we have.
And you know how I feel about it. I think that
I'm of a little bit different opinion, as
yeah,
you
well,
can
of course,
tell.
of course. I mean, the engineers made a mistake. They made several mistakes. We're trying to deal with that. I think that we've gone through the proper chain of command at the fire marshal's office. I think that your solution of going to the top may help us, but it may not. And I guess I look to Lee for some guidance on that.
Yeah.
Do you think, Lee, that at this point, sending a letter after their deputies have already said to the engineers, you saw the email chain, they batted it back and forth. The fire marshal is not satisfied with the engineer's recommendation. Do you think it makes sense to go to the?
At this point, I don't think it does, just because the time has come. And I get what you're saying, Ralph, but I also think we should set an example as a town of Readfield, and we want our buildings to be up to state of Maine code. Unfortunately, it's going to cost us some dollars to do it.
Yeah,
We can't go back in time. I mean, those numerous things that happened. If we could go back in time, we could make sure they didn't, but at this point they did, and that's what we've been served with.
Yeah, I want to just,
Carrying sheetrock up through into the truss area that's not necessarily dictated by code, and it doesn't make anything safer. Wouldn't it be easier to drop the suspended ceiling and double layer the sheetrock on the ceiling before you get to the trusses? Wouldn't that?
That's already been done, Ralph. So the issue
Is it doubled up?
It is.
It
Everything
is.
in those
The two
rooms.
bunk rooms,
Yeah, but I mean, the
the building,
hallway and.
the building could be on fire, and if you're in one of those rooms, the way they are right now, you
You're
can
gonna
stand,
be
you
sick.
can stand in there for an hour
Yeah.
before you're gonna feel any heat or smoke. So that's not the issue. The issue is the state adopted 2018 standards. Our application and all that, the architects talked to them. The inspector said, if you do this, you know, I'm all set with it. For whatever reason, the paperwork never got back there in time until May 20th.
May.
And that's kind of like, you know, the cows are already out.
Yeah, I guess I want to add some perspective on this. I mean, it's a 3% difference at the end of the project. And I'm not saying that that's insignificant, the 35,000. But I couldn't agree more. I mean, if the code has changed and we got caught in the twilight zone on it, I think it behooves the town of Readfield to live to that code, because that's what we would want enforced if a manufacturing facility, for example, came into, or a hotel or something like that. So it is too bad. I do see that we have about $30,000, so I think we can make some progress on the second floor egress, for example, for the library. I do have a question about, there are 4 items that we don't have pricing on, so we can talk about that. We'll have to make some priorities on it. But I also would say that when you go through this kind of an experience and you have certain firms that are involved that perhaps did not move things very well, that informs the town in the future as to what firms it may or may not use.
No question there.
That's a good part of this learning, if you will. And I'll just leave it at that.
And in
Dennis.
future contracts, is that one of the stipulations that can be written in, is that, you know, timeliness of work that affects
Sure.
changes in code or law that cause price increases are going to be borne by the company, which I would assume has insurance for things like that,
Errors and omissions.
errors and omissions. That might not be a bad place to go with this anyway. I'm not saying to threaten a lawsuit, but to just ask.
No, but that's exactly my point. It is a learning thing.
Right.
So, and I was being a little cavalier about the firm involved or whatever, but in any case, yes, that's exactly right. We can write a better RFP in the future to, on a project of this size.
But
Yeah,
I
to
haven't
look at
heard
this.
anything about a firm number for a plan. The last number I was told was that we needed to sprinkle the entire building and we were looking at 200. So do we have something that's been approved and a price for that?
There's a $20,000 slug in here for that.
I don't
bump
think
room.
that's it though.
Well, so that's the proposal for the sprinkler system for the 2 rooms. If we have additional work to do, that additional hardening off of the
Into the truss
of the 4
system.
walls into the truss system, that's going to have a cost. I wouldn't venture a guess. I mean,
I don't
maybe
imagine
5,000 or
it has to
10,000. I
be
mean,
taped and all the rest. You just have to
Yeah.
sheet rock it, correct?
The builder says it's possible. The engineer says that it should be acceptable. The trouble is not knowing, and I hate, being here today, not having answers, because you know how I like to have answers. And this is one where we've been pushing and pushing and pushing the engineer and calling, and they submitted, and then they got their response, and they went back and forth with the fire marshal. It's been a laborious process for everybody involved. But I just have to say, I agree with Reed that I think that we should be doing this almost no matter what. I think that it's incredibly important for us to meet that 2018 code, because that's what we would want other people to do. That being said, I think we can do it within reason. We may have to make some decisions later on about other project components. But having those 2 bunk rooms being usable and to current code, to me is what we did this for in very large part.
Yeah.
Let's go
yeah.
back to where the fire marshal hasn't given us any indication that they're going to move an inch on what they were requiring. And their requirement was the whole building had to be sprinkled. Am I
That's
correct?
not correct.
That's not. So what is their final
Just
line?
They haven't given
the,
that to us yet.
I think just the addition is probably gonna have to be sprinkled.
Okay, so whatever is in the new
Whatever's in the
construction,
new,
including the
new
new
part.
bay?
I don't know.
Okay,
I mean, there's too many unknowns right now. I mean, honestly, it would be nice to sit here and say we should sprinkle a whole building, but financially, I don't think we're in a spot that we could even think about doing that. So
Well,
I
the
think,
square footage of the addition, isn't it approximately equal to what was already there?
I'd have to look at.
It's about a third probably,
Third?
but it depends if you include the
It's
bay.
close because
If you
you've got the
include the
equipment bay,
apparatus
which is
bay.
big.
But the
So-
bunk rooms are where people would be
Where
overnight.
the
and we would
issues,
not be able to put people in there overnight if we didn't.
if we don't sprinkle
Yeah,
it.
so that's,
So what I'm getting at is, I don't think the $20,000 is anywhere near a reasonable number based on the conversations that I've listened to over time. And I certainly don't have all of the information, but I think you might be looking at something more between 50 and 100, and we don't have that. So then it's going to come to this board to decide how do we finish the project, because they can't close it up and certify it and use it.
I think in past, and correct me if I'm wrong here, if we sign, okay, we don't have the money to get what we want. The bones are there, and I think if we say, okay, in 2 years down the road, we'll sprinkle a building. I think that works. I think we have to, you guys as a board have to get involved,
Have a commitment.
have a commitment saying, okay, we understand we can't sleep in the building. Isn't that how that whole thing kind of went along?
Yeah, that's an option for us. And the engineer has presented, although I don't have a lot of stock in it because I haven't seen any paper behind it, the fact that we could simply state that we built this to the 2009 code and we're happy with the 2009 code. That's one option.
And we can sign off on it like that. We're not following state code.
But we're safe at the local level.
We're safe at the local level. I think the other option, if we do it later, but we just have to say, at this point, we're not going to use those rooms. And that came from the inspector directly at the fire marshal's office.
And then that just
Conversation
becomes a
we had.
deferred cost and a deferred project, which is only going to cost more in the future. So I think there's.
I don't really think it does though, because right now the building's pretty much buttoned up. So I think it's going to cost what it's going to cost anyways, because everything's in there now.
Yeah,
I'm just looking at a benefit, it's expensive, but at the same token, we've got how many $1 million worth of equipment in that fire station? If, pray tell, something happened, an electrical fire or some of the apparatus caught on, cars catch on fire for no reason whatsoever. They got batteries. If that fire station goes up, the town loses all its fire protection. With the sprinkler system in it, we have a fighting chance maybe of getting some equipment out and we don't lose our apparatus for the whole town. So
Yeah.
I want to
think there's
recognize Dennis
benefit.
first
Yeah,
because
yeah.
we've been waiting.
Thank you very much. There's some things I want to say. First of all, timeliness of work is sort of inherent in calling yourself a professional. So I just want to mention that in terms. The other thing is, to me, this is a no-brainer. I just feel like this is a no-brainer. Not being able to use the building in its absolute full function to me would be such a limp commitment to what we've already done. And I just feel like we are so close. We are at the dance. We've got to get in there and boogie. And that's literally, to me, the only way to look at it. And there's no compromise as far as I'm concerned, because if that's what we have to do, that's what we have to do. And we can talk about who didn't do what and when didn't get turned in. But the reality is we have apparatus, we have people, we have a whole staff of folks that have to get in there, and we can do all that stuff later in retrospect when we have a better idea. So my personal opinion, just Dennis, is saying, let's make sure that we take this to the finish line and get what we want. And then if there's something that we have to look back and reflect on in terms of our relationship or how things were handled, let's do that once everything is finished. And that's how I feel.
I do want to point out too that we've been talking about safety. this building is safe. It was built the 2009 code.
eminently
It met and exceeded the 2009 code and the code that existed and was being enforced up to as recently as 6 months ago. So this is a very safe building. This is, there's no question about that. You can always do better, and basically that's what the code, the 2018 is. It's damn near aspirational. I don't know how they can expect any small town to afford what they're proposing in there, but that's a whole nother issue.
Therein lies the
Yeah,
problem.
yeah,
That
yeah.
is-
We
but
could talk about that
We
forever.
could, but
But
yes,
what
move
I
on.
want to, I just
In
want to
terms
know.
in terms of cash outlay, total project cost, what's budgeted, what's in reserve? If we were to, as part of a negotiated settlement with the state, give them a letter of commitment that we will do this in a described time frame, so that it doesn't land on us all at once and we compromise the basic project, which we're trying to complete now. And we carry out that sprinkling operation in a series of steps, or, we do it a year from now with another budget shot in the arm. Once we have a plan and we know what the heck it is we're going to be. Is that something that would fly? Can we issue a letter of commitment to the
I
state?
think, it's gonna take meetings, but I think the way it was explained to me was we can do something like that.
Okay, well
It
then
just-
that's reasonable.
And-
Well, that's
and I get
not-
what Dennis is saying.
Let me back up. That's a solution,
Yes.
but I don't see how we do it this fiscal year when we don't know what exactly is going to be required of us. And we still have some things that we want to do in terms of total project that we cannot justifiably do because we don't know what the cost of this requirement will be. So,
It's a valid point.
so let us finish what we've got on our plate with the balance of the money we have in hand. And if a commitment letter to do whatever it is that powers that be tell us we have to do in some sort of a laid out timeframe will work, then that's a solution. It's not a pleasant one, but certainly it's better than where we are right now, where we just take every nickel we have in the project to do this. And maybe it's not the ideal way to do it to begin with. So let's, if we can put it in advance and commit to doing something in a proper fashion within a couple of years' time, that's what we ought to be doing if the powers that be will bless it.
So I would like to finalize discussion on this because now we're starting to discuss unknowns.
Yes.
And so we'll be,
That's how we started.
so this will be, and yes, that is how we started. So we do have a little bit more understanding of it, and I'm going to give Lee the last word on it. But at this point, we're expecting another report in early October.
Well,
You'll have more information perhaps.
We're
okay?
expecting any day now to get confirmation from our engineer as to whether or
Okay.
not the fire marshals will accept the build-up with some strengthened walls and some more fire stuff, whether that solution will work, which I think is the first best solution, because it is in budget and it meets the need, and it does it this year.
So
However, once we get that, then we can move on.
Yeah, once we get some definite
yeah.
So
now.
we'll get more information. So Lee, the floor is yours, and then we'll close out this.
And I mean, if we have to push it off, I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
Those two bunk rooms are those are envisioned for the future. We're not gonna put people in there this year, next year, 2 years, probably the medic staying there is probably still 5 years out, that we need to have somebody there 24/7. So it's not like, oh my God, we got to do something right now.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Those were there, thinking of the future.
Sure. That's good to
So
know.
I
Thank
think-
you.
I'd like
Whatever
to
we have to,
I'm sorry.
nope, go ahead.
I'd just like to address the rest of the project because we didn't do that. We only talked about the fire station component.
That's fair.
And I had another question. I don't need to monopolize the conversation, but I don't recall that we actually voted on putting in $10,000 from contingency in each fiscal year is, if we did, I just didn't realize.
So last year, we did that as part of the overall project approval. We laid out the whole thing.
Right,
I believe very strongly that was done. We can go back and look and maybe.
that's fine.
You know, I'm fairly certain that was done.
I recall putting 10,000 from the select board contingency.
Okay.
This year, that has not happened, and
That's an
that's a
ask.
very good,
That's an
that's an ask, yeah.
Yeah.
And that ask is pretty important for that bottom line number. So, yes, thank you for
And
bringing
our
that.
contingency line budget total is 25,000, is that correct?
Yes, for the select board contingency,
Okay,
yes.
and we're in the pandemic time and we're talking about not doing our road paving till we see how revenues are and, you know, taking 10,000 to put into this right off the bat. I think we have a little pandemic pricing maybe going on with some of our add-on bids, which is why you're asking for an RFP to do
Yeah.
the additional work at the library, which I think is a great idea. Let's put it out to bid and see what people can do. But I think we're going to fall in the same place as we did last year. We're at the end of the building season. So it's an outside project. So if you're asking someone to do that now, for some reason, they think they can charge more because it's the end of the year. I don't understand that, but.
We could go with a spring award.
Yep.
And project.
You got better pricing last time.
People are more hungry in the winter for projects possibly.
Okay, so to move along, okay, again, I'm trying to watch our time and use it as efficiently as possible. The two library pieces that are left, the idea is to write an RFP on those, right? Or two separate RFPs?
The two pieces that are left, we have the fire.
The second floor egress, I'm talking about the library only.
Yep.
And then the interior finish work is the
Oh.
other one listed.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that one we were looking to get some quotes from people because we know the scope of that, it's fairly limited.
Very
And we
limited.
were going to look at that as a quote process with an RFP for the more involved fire escape component.
Okay,
In discussions with the board and Catherine and others.
okay. Are we all set on this? Lee, you all set?
I'm all good. Did you,
Thank
Yeah.
you. And, you know, this has taken an incredible amount of attention,
Yeah.
and I really appreciate Ralph and Eric's attention on this, and Lee has been consulted, what, 1,000 or 1,500 times
the
now?
fire station was supposed to be the easy part of this whole,
It was too.
it started out that way, and then all of a sudden,
Jeez.
wham.
Yeah.
But we can say that the builder has been excellent. all
He
the way
has
through.
been extremely
They've been great.
So,
wonderful.
yeah. Okay, great. So we'll move on now.
Thank you.
I will
Thanks,
be,
Lee.
Thanks, Lee.
Welcome. Thanks, Lee.
Thank you, Chief.
Put the eight, was that 8,000 that the association
That's what I wanted to done is I wanted to show the actual purchase of the appliances, so that would be the 3 and then the 10, so basically, which I'm, so it's a. At this point.
Thank you.
with the board's approval, can we go to 21-026? We have a
Yes.
gentleman who's been waiting here for a long time, and our discussion was fairly extensive there. So let's go ahead with that. Is the board okay with that?
Yes, yes.
So
yes.
we're considering a draft application for the marijuana establishments as called for in the marijuana establishments ordinance that was passed by town meeting at the July election. So Eric, I'm going to let you go ahead and speak to that. So basically, we need to have an application and a fee schedule to, which follows on as a matter of course. And
Yes.
so that's in development.
That's in development. So after the town meeting in which the ordinance was approved, the work was started to find samples and reference documents that we could use to develop an actual application that was called for by the ordinance. And the application really serves 3 purposes. It's for 3 different really 4 groups. It's for the applicant. The application is to help inform the applicant of what the requirements are in the ordinance, the marijuana establishments ordinance, as well as what other provisions might exist in other ordinances, most specifically the land use ordinance. So the first audience, the first person, the first group that's served by this is the applicant. This is a tool to help them get through the process expediently and without minimal disruption. The second group, or the second individual, is the code officer. The code officer receives the application and is also responsible per the ordinance for enforcement. So this is a tool for the code officer to help ascertain the completeness of the application and also to help the applicant through the process. So that's the second individual. The third group that this goes to is the planning board. And the planning board really is doing the heavy lifting on this. Many of these provisions relate to land use type activities, and the very same or similar classifications of review they would be doing for a regular land use permit. Most applications will be also needing to go through the land use process. The marijuana establishments ordinance is something like an overlay. It is just that extra level of review and care and information gathering that's needed for a business that's highly regulated and new. I think that over time, some of these things might become, less invasive as far as what's required, less costly, all of that. But for now, we're dealing with a new model, and so anyway, the planning board is doing the primary review of the application to make sure it's complete and that we have a good understanding and a good fit in the community for these businesses under the guidelines of the ordinance. It's all in the ordinance. This application brings all that back and puts it in an organized, condensed format so that we can check things off. We can go through and understand fully and wholly what's happening and what's being proposed.
Is this draft available? Is it a public document?
It's in the packet online. Yeah.
Okay, great. Super.
Which makes it public.
Yeah,
And
gotcha.
so the last group is the select board. And the select board role, it's called for in the ordinance, but it is not 100% clearly defined. Really, I look at it as something it's a secondary review. This is an important enough activity and something that's new enough that the select board is here to make sure that the planning board got all their stuff together and got it reviewed properly. Also, it's another opportunity for public comment and understanding and learning about this new business that's allowed in the state of Maine and allowed in Readfield. So the select board review is a little bit different. You could get into the weeds on all the little minutia, but I would expect that would be left to the planning board. But that's more of a process question, and that's something that I'm working on with the planning board and the code officer. Jack Comart and myself and Jamie, the code officer, are going to be meeting tomorrow to go over the process side of this, to go over the application, also to talk about the comments from the select board. And then this will be moving on to the planning board for their review and discussion. And I know I'm rolling on things, so I'll stop for a second.
Of the application itself?
Of the application itself, yes.
Okay, so we're in draft mode on the application. When do we expect to have a application that people can use?
My hope and expectation is that we'll have something by the end of October. It takes a little bit of time to get this review done. We want to make sure we have the right information being requested, that we're compliant with state law, that we're not creating tripwires with other provisions of other ordinances or even internally, which can happen sometimes.
Well, and also we don't want to be building a application that creates roadblocks that are unreasonable as well.
Exactly. We want this to be a smooth, transparent process that's easy for the applicant, as easy as it can be. Land use applications, which again will also likely be required for this, for the physical property placement and the business placement. That's not an easy process, and we recognize that this is another layer. So the more we can do to make that layer do what it's supposed to, offer that additional review and care, but without adding extra burden if possible, is really what we're going for. So this application, like I said, just includes the information that is required per the ordinance, basic information on the ownership and management of the entity, as well as some initial background check type information and I won't say quality control for owners, but a way to assess whether or not someone has had violations in the past or whether they own multiple businesses. Things that might trigger a different review or even a denial, perhaps, if someone has a criminal record that relates to marijuana sales. Those type of things are important. So as I noted, this is before you tonight. It'll be going to the planning board and it's already in legal review, assuming that we're going to get something similar like from this at the end of the process.
Okay, so let's
That's my spiel.
let's just stop and are there members of the public? Did you want to address this, speak to it, or ask a question about it? If you can, please go to the mic and just let us know who you are.
Okay, yeah. Well, my name's Aaron.
We're all masked here.
Who's that math man?
That's right.
My name's Aaron Neely, and I'm basically just here just because I'm just out of curiosity about what the process is going to be and what's looking like. And, certainly I guess I was hoping to fill out one of those applications when they're ready. I was hoping to establish basically a caregiver retail store in Readfield, and I was hoping to do it in a way that doesn't change the character of the town and doesn't create a disturbance for people. Hope to do it in a tasteful way. Much like, well, I don't know. It's not a good example, but the McDonald's in Freeport. It's such a tasteful McDonald's.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm basically just here just to
Okay,
see
good.
what the discussion is. So.
Yeah, so basically the ordinances have passed, and we also know the state of state law. So now it's just us to make sure we have a good permit system in place, and that application is what kicks it off.
Right on. And is there going to be any, opportunity for, I know you mentioned yourself and Jamie and Jack are going to be basically formulating this application. Is there going to be any opportunity for the public to, I guess, comment on?
This is it.
Oh, this is it.
And well,
One of a
this is
few.
not it,
Yeah.
but this is one point of it. And then we will vote on the final application, and I'm assuming the planning board will speak as a body on it as well.
So there will be a planning board meeting at the very least to review and discuss this before it's finally approved.
All right, cool.
And comments are always welcome. I mean, the packets are available online. Take a look at it. If you need any more information or want to talk about it, I'm happy to talk with you about it. I'm actually hoping to reach out to you as a potential applicant and get some feedback from you on it too. So that'll be part of the process. I can't say that I'm going to reach out to everybody that's called and asked, because we've had about a dozen soft inquiries over the past year. But you're right in front of us, and I think that you could be a resource.
All right.
Great.
All right, well, thank you.
Good. Catherine?
Dennis, I'm just going to ask you this because I think you're the one most familiar with it. So did we end up putting 8 different questions, 8 different pieces that all came under the one heading of the ordinance?
Yes, the cafe option, but not
Right.
all of them were voted as
Right,
approved.
and
Yeah.
so did we vote in 6 of them, do I recall? Or was it
No, 5.
5 of them, yeah, 5
5
of
of
them.
them?
Yeah.
Okay, and are they all listed in here? That's what I'm just trying to make sure that our ducks are
Yep.
all in a
They
row.
are. So
Yep, right in the second page.
Yep. We have a table
Or-
that shows the ones that were adopted, when they were adopted, and the permit fees for the ones that we know. Some of the permit fees are variable, so those were left blank.
Do you see that table?
Right, but I'm looking up above it in where we're talking about the specifics, and we've got the medical manufacturing, medical testing, medical caregiver, medical retail store. Then we have adult use cultivation.
Those are the 5, and those are reflected below.
Not a store.
Yes.
Right,
Store.
Yes, a medical
that's
marijuana
great. I know
store
it.
that's great, was approved, but not
No adult use
no adult use.
store, that is correct.
So there's a medical, well, actually, I think all of them are supposedly now are all medical use stores in Manchester, is that correct?
Yes, now
And
they,
the one
yeah.
in Winthrop.
Uh-huh.
And that was approved. I think that was a very close vote. Is that the one that was like 10 votes?
I have no idea.
But anyway, it passed and it only needed to pass by one. But not a retail adult use store.
That is correct. So essentially what it would be is, as a caregiver, Aaron, if you don't mind, I'll use you as an example. Aaron would like to have people come in. He would need to only serve patients that have their license. No tourist, no one who did not have a license could acquire any cannabis or THC products from him legally. And that, and so he would have to keep them on file. He would have to track all, like that sort of stuff. So they would essentially become a sort of patient of that place. Anything else would not be allowed at that facility.
Okay, so this, I have just one question in terms of everyone reviewing this, and it looks like all the ducks have been put in their respective places.
Yeah, it's a good
I've
document.
noticed several places, there's one across from Margarita's in Augusta, where you can get your license at one door and then you can purchase your medical product at the next door. Is that what the state allows?
Yes, that is correct. The physician there can write you the prescription and authorize the card. They give it. You cannot walk from one place to get your card into the other. That is not how the system works. You have to actually have your card physically on you before you can do that. That is a legal thing that exists. You may hear sometimes of temporary cards. That is not on the up and up.
So these stores that are giving licenses, and I know that they're all doing this by state law, I just want it to be very clearly understood by people so we don't think that something's happening that shouldn't be, or the opposite.
Nope.
So you apply for a license, you don't actually get your card right then and there.
That is
It goes
correct.
back to the state who issues you a card.
Yes, and so in fact, you have your appointment with your prescribing a physician, and after that, they will write and apply to the state on your behalf. You have to wait until you get your card from the state before you can go to that store.
Okay. That's not how it appears to the general person driving by, which would be me.
Absolutely, and that is
So I'm glad you clarified that. I think that's really important.
Yeah, yes, I think that is a good point that you raise.
Yep. And I think it will make people much more comfortable with how this will operate.
Absolutely, and the medical system has worked in Maine since 1991.
Yeah, that's not new.
Not new.
It's just the adult use that's new.
Exactly
And we only
right.
passed
So,
the cultivation.
I do want to just point out that this is an ongoing process, and if anybody does want to be involved, you can go to the Town of Readfield website and sign up for e-alerts for the planning board and for the select board, so that when the agendas come out for either one of those entities, you can get direct mailed. And you'll know exactly what's happening and when. So I can't say that enough. It's a wonderful resource. It's a way to stay connected.
And where is that,
And it's
Eric?
automatic. If you go to the town website, you look at the bottom or the side left-hand corner, there's a button there that says subscribe to e-alerts.
Gotcha.
And it's a quick and easy way to stay, and it's it's a cafeteria plan. We love cafeteria.
We have your choice. We love choice.
You can
Give
pick
people a
Any
choice.
number of things to be informed about, emergency announcements, recreational opportunities, all that stuff, so.
So I'm in support of what you guys have, or whomever has put forth here to
Yeah, this is a good
have a
document.
good draft and to have it reviewed by all the parties that are going to be involved in processing the applications and having legal review. It should come back to us and be approved, I would imagine.
And I appreciate Eric's saying that he would reach out and accommodate some input from potential applicant as well. I think that's.
Aaron, is it okay if I have,
It
get
makes us,
your
it
cell
makes
phone
us
number? for
user
Jamie?
connected.
Okay, great.
Okay. So great. We'll, that piece of business is done for now. We will now move on to the ongoing regional broadband project and our membership in WKLCBA. And
Sounds like a radio
I'm
station.
telling you, WKLBCA and beautiful downtown
I'm
region.
going to actually let Catherine lead this discussion, but just start off by saying we're in a little bit different place than some of the towns. And there's been some discussion back and forth as to whether we should withdraw from the group or perhaps go on a kind of a different status level with the group. So Catherine and Eric as well, if you could just give us a little bit of background maybe.
I can give you the down and dirty.
That's good. Give us the down and dirty.
I think this is what I presented it was at our select board retreat. So there's been, since we held the public hearing on the 3rd, I believe, of September, there's been a revision to the plan that was done by the consultant based on some questions that came out of that meeting. And we have now found out that Readfield has 96% coverage by cable, which doesn't mean 96% of households have internet. It means that it's available to them. It also doesn't mean that it's at the prescribed rate that they say it is. We know a lot of people have trouble with what they have supposedly contracted for and what they actually receive in terms of speed. So that leaves us with 4% that's not covered, and that puts Readfield in a position where we cannot apply for any aid. There won't be any grants, there won't be any federal funding, there won't be any state funding, because we are already a served community. We are not underserved. The other 5 towns in that consortium that we are part of, the greatest coverage in the next town is like 64%. There are 2 towns that have 0. One town that has 0? One town has 0.
Yeah, it's,
And that's Vienna, and Fayette has something like 4% covered. So basically 0. So they will be looking for anybody who's going to respond to the proposals that were put out by the consortium are going to want to work with towns that have a lot of open space, that they can go in and build a network, and a lot of people will want to buy into it. If they come into Readfield, hardly anyone's going to buy in because there's only 4 miles, and it's a half a mile here, it's a quarter mile there, it's an eighth a mile over here. So it puts Readfield in a completely different position, which Eric and I presented at the last meeting, which was last Thursday on the 10th.
That was select board retreat, right? Oh, no, you're talking about, I know what you're talking about.
Right, no, I think we
The last
retreated on
meeting
the
of this
8th.
group here.
Right,
Yeah.
of the Western Kennebec Lakes
Yes.
group. We did not actually withdraw because right now, the point that they're at is in receiving proposals, and it's to Readfield's benefit to still have access to those proposals that are coming in, because it has valuable information about what will be offered to the other towns, assuming that Readfield will probably not have any offers in there. And we've already paid for that. And the money that we have spent was to develop all of this data collection and maps so that we could then put out proposals. So we agreed to stay to do that, but both Eric and I pulled out in terms of being working members. And I told them I wouldn't chair a group I wasn't part of. So they have appointed a different chair, and they're going off in a different direction because now they realize that they're probably not going to be building their own network. And Readfield is going to come under the realization that we will have to. Spectrum has no interest in providing us the remainder of our uncovered roads, and they don't really have any interest in bringing us fiber. So we would be looking at how we go about doing that, and Eric can maybe give us a quick on the 3 sort of step process that would entail.
Sure, so we would need to do some, well, first of all, there's going to be an ongoing community engagement and participation and all of that. This is going to be a big decision. If we want to do this promptly, it's going to take a lot of work and a lot of outreach to get something ready for as soon as next June, if we don't have any more delays for voting, but the next town meeting. And so the first step would be working on getting design and planning work done to help assess and model what might be a viable network for us. The second step would be putting that out to bid and getting proposals. Similar process to what we're doing with the case WKLCBA. It's pretty bad with consortium is an easier word than the actual acronym. That second step needs to happen, and then the town would need to work on financing and implementing that. I don't think I've given it the true level of detail that it should have, but that's my understanding of how it would all work. And we would need to get voter approval to go to bond for very likely a $4 to $5 million bond. Over
Holy,
20 to, I know, Grace, isn't that terrible? We can't see you, so it just sounds so odd coming out of the TV, but
We know you're there.
we know you're there. And we know there's probably a lot of other people out there saying the same thing. And that's going to be a big discussion about what the costs are and what the benefits are and whether people will be able to get similar or better service than they're getting now. And what the cost of that is in between a portion of the tax bill that would be covering this service and what you're paying as a subscriber. So there's a lot of math that needs to happen around things like take rates and membership and how many people we have sign up and what they're charged. A
There are
lot to
also
that.
very different bonding structures that may be available to us.
There are,
for-
yeah.
That are long-term, that allow draw-ons. I mean, there's different tools that may be unique for this kind of project.
The key thing
So
so
that's the
that
process,
people
yeah.
aren't just gasping at the number is, if we think of how we have built our roads, over 40 some odd miles of roads, and the millions and millions of dollars that are in those roads, and we spend in excess of $300,000 every year on our roads, and that will go on forever because the roads will always need to be repaired and rebuilt. You're looking at building a network and then just maintaining it, which is a much lesser cost than, say, in a road network. If we look, and we will be, but when you look at other towns that have done this or other groups of towns that have done it, they have found that the overall cost is far less for a much greater product that people are purchasing in the long run. So it's just a different way of approaching this than having a private company. It becomes a utility district. And so that's what we are going to ask for the town to do, is to have somebody come in and give us this engineering design, which all the data has been collected for from what we paid for already in the group, the consortium work.
And this isn't a done deal. It goes through a process.
Right, and so then we can get some bids, and then we can hear, or proposals, then you can start to dissect and say, okay, here's what it would be. And it's important for people to realize that when you have fiber, you're talking about fiber for your television, for your entertainment, for your download, your streaming services, for your telephone, telemedicine. So you put all of those costs that you're paying different providers for now, and it can all come out of one thing that's going to last for decades. And so we'll put all the information together and get it out, and there shouldn't be a lot of upfront cost in doing that. But that's the way that Readfield's going to have to go, because there's really no other alternative. So we have to look at that, and then the good people of Readfield will decide if that's what they want or not.
Exactly. Thank you. So with that, the status of us in the consortium is we are like a friend of the court. For now.
Yes, so we are just there.
We're still a member, but we're not expecting to remain closely involved, but it is possible somebody would peel off and join us, perhaps Mount Vernon or something, as we go along in the future.
It could be the consultant basically told us that there's no economy of scale in doing a project like this. There might be if you had a large group, but we don't have a large group that's in our same situation. So that's where we're at.
We're going to be actively working on it, and I'm really glad the board has been taking so much time at the meetings to discuss this stuff over the past several months. So.
And if the town is interested, we could actually move quicker than a consortium group who needs to secure grant funding.
Right.
Because if all we're doing is securing bonding, that's a very straightforward process, and it has specific timeframes. If you're applying for 4 or 5 different grants, and there's application time, and there's waiting time, and then there's funding time, it could take a year longer than what we might be able to provide. So we'll see where we go.
Okay, so I'm going to move us into a public hearing for the purpose of the General Assistance Ordinance, Appendix A through H for the years 2020 and 2021. This is something that we do every year. It's pro forma in many respects, but basically what we do is we get additional information from the state that defines, I'm trying to look for it in my packet here, which further defines where is that?
Can I summarize? It's the
about
maximum
halfway
levels of
down.
assistance.
I see the general assistance ordinance appendices
Yep,
A
that's
through
right.
H, and I thought it followed that, but I have the connectivity point stuff following that, so I seem to be missing some pages that I read earlier.
Huh. It shouldn't be, but
No, it shouldn't be.
yeah.
Somehow my 56-page packet became a 47-page packet. Anyhow, I don't need to read those because I would not. The first thing we do in a public hearing is invite anybody to speak to the matter that wishes, and typically this is not one we do receive any input from, but it is important that we hold it. Were there any questions about the indices that were in your packet? So these were housing costs, fuel costs, different considerations that relate to general assistance in terms of qualification. And so those qualifications each year are reviewed and the state recommends, or I should say MMA has a model ordinance for general assistance that we adopt these appendices for each year. Am I
We,
describing that in a way that everybody understands?
Yes.
we adopt these, but they're state recommended, correct?
The ordinance is
Yeah.
MMA.
The ordinance is MMA, but the
appendices are
state established the
Yeah.
actual amounts. You're correct.
Right, we can't change the amounts.
We
No.
can, as long as we can go up.
We can
can't
go
Go
up.
up.
That's
Because
correct.
these are the minimum numbers.
Yeah,
Right.
And we've always operated with these state guidelines. So if hearing no one, I hereby close the public meeting and we move on to new business, which is to consider amending appendices A through D of the General Assistance Ordinance. And so we have appendices A through D in your packet.
I think it's through H.
I was gonna say,
H.
does that say H?
A through H.
How come it says A through D?
Because I had a typo.
Oh,
Eric,
You caught me.
yeah, okay.
It is
Thank
A
you.
through H.
I'm smiling broadly here.
I'll make a motion that we adopt appendices A through H for the fiscal year, October 1st, 2020 through September 30th, 2021, General Assistance Ordinance Appendices.
Second,
It's been moved and seconded to amend those appendices per what is in the packet for the general assistance ordinance. Is there any discussion on that motion? All in favor? Okay, so folks, that's how law gets made.
You're not presented with many options, so.
do it this way.
Consider an agreement with Connectivity Point for the conversion of our analog public access television and meeting broadcast equipment to digital. I'm really excited to talk about this.
Is this when we get to have Bill come out?
This is when Bill
I
comes
think
out.
Bill is going to come out.
Comes out from behind the curtain.
So basically, this is about a $12,000 cost?
Yes.
13.
About 13, and we budgeted 14,000, so we would have about 1,200 extra for extras.
Okay.
We
Can
can
you
put it
find
in
your
as
way to the
sprinkler.
microphone, Bill?
I'm sorry.
He's going to go switch the microphone.
He doesn't have a little wireless lavalier he can wear?
No, that would be in the digital upgrade.
Not yet, coming soon.
There he is.
Thank you for humoring us, Bill.
Oh, this is hearing from the expert himself.
Good evening.
Hello, hello.
How can I help you?
From the-
Tell us, just give us a very brief background on what this does for us in terms of going from analog to digital.
Sure. The switcher, the heart of the whole system, the TV system, is 30 plus years old. So it's going to break. And when it does break, we won't have the capacity to replay videos. So if we don't replace it, I can pull the cable off and put it on to another connector, and I can go live like we are tonight. But we really need to upgrade. We're 2 generations behind in technology. So we're operating on standard definition. We ought to get up to high definition. We need to, over time, replace our cameras. And if we get this fancy box is what's today is in the marketplace, we can grow to that. We don't have to change our cameras immediately. It's the standard right now is SDI, and of course it's SD, standard definition, that the station's built on. So it's basically, I built the whole thing, and it's basically e-waste from UMA. So we ought to start, if the college got rid of it, then we ought to start thinking about moving forward to the future as well.
And Bill, for the citizen experience, we will be able to live stream correctly?
That's a feature. In part of the quote, we had a $600 adapter, I think, that allows us to go out to YouTube or Twitter or someplace.
Okay. Are there some questions for Bill?
Well, I just want to start off by letting the public know and thanking Bill for building this system that we have now. You've built this over a number of years. As you mentioned, by getting material that was being discarded by others and bringing it to Readfield at no cost and setting it up for us to fulfill a goal a number of years ago that the select board had for being able to film meetings and then replay them. And you've just done a wonderful job at that.
Oh, thank you.
I can't think of anything else we should do than to support this so that we can make this better for the citizens, provide even more transparency, and to make your life an easier one and not dealing with 2-generation-old equipment. So thank you.
If I could add, it's a great benefit to the public because we can increase program a great deal. Instead of run one program every night of the week at 6:30, we can offer this several programs over the course of the day. Like I get conflicts when we're doing the RSU 38, the budget meetings. You know, I have to stagger it, run us for a few days, then run them for a few days, and always at 6:30. But I could run it midday, even later, 10 o'clock. It depends when the public wants to watch it. But we can't do public service announcements. I know there's a number of those that we could make available, but we can't now.
Well,
So
I'm
if the-
pretty familiar with a small town in Massachusetts. I shouldn't say small because they're about 5 times the size of us, that they also occasionally run veteran interviews. I mean, they do some very light local programming, but we would end up with some capability to do some stuff like that then could run 2 or 3 times a week, for example, a good program. Or if we filmed, for example, we've filmed in the past our Spirit of America Awards. So something like that, then we can show the community for the next month on a weekly basis or something, what we did.
Yep. I have a great catalog on file because we've had the years of employee appreciation events that we've done. I've got all that. The Boston Cane holders, we've got all that lovely stuff that we could share.
Great.
Christmas tree lightings.
So if we wanted to get into the production business, we could make our own Readfield PSAs topic specific?
Quite easily, yes.
Okay.
Just make a little studio.
You could do a tour of the cemeteries with the sexton, et cetera, et cetera.
Heritage Day.
Yeah, for Heritage Days. I mean, Bill's out there at every function with his camera, so.
Got history walks, Union Meeting House.
Mhm.
Great.
So I would make a motion that we accept the proposal in our packet from Connectivity Point in the total amount of $12,803 and authorize the town manager to sign.
Could I, as you're developing that, that motion, make a couple recommendations?
Sure.
I'm noticing that it says that taxes and so there are some miscellaneous equipment that is not in that proposal quote. So maybe we could do an up to amount to cover that. And in the same motion, say that we would suspend the policy, the purchasing policy, because it is a couple $1,000s over the $10,000 cap on the purchasing policy.
I'll withdraw my motion. I'll make a new motion.
Sounds good to me.
To accept the proposal quote from Connectivity Point, which reads for $12,803, but authorize the project up to $14,000, including incidentals as listed in the project, and authorize the town manager to sign. And suspend the purchasing policy for this one item.
I second. Is there any discussion on the motion?
We had this in the budget for 14.
We budgeted for 14 to give a
So-
little buffer
The budget was voted on by the public.
and approved.
Yeah. So we're executing this. And the reason we're going to this single source is this is exactly the one source that can do this. It's not like we can put it out to a wide competitive bid situation and really get what we need. This is a source we know of and we can work with, correct? Okay, great. And we try not to do single source. We try to get bids, but in this case, this is
Very specialized.
this is where we need to be.
Yeah.
It's very specialized. Okay, let's take a vote. All in favor? Okay. Somebody's gonna have to give me a motion on the length of this meeting. Thank you so much, Bill.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you.
I don't think it's going to take that long, so I'll make a motion to extend the meeting by 10 minutes.
I'll second it.
All in favor? Okay, we will now move on to considering the makeup and guidance of the Comprehensive Plan Update Committee.
Sorry, I missed that.
Did I miss something?
No, I missed that when I
Catherine did.
made my 10 minutes.
Okay.
We can still
I don't
probably
think
do
we're
it.
gonna need 10 minutes on this. I mean, I think basically,
Yeah.
as written by Eric, and we're just kind of using, we almost have a template now on how we put together committees. Is that correct, Eric? Am I kind of stating that
You're
correctly?
absolutely right. Yeah,
So
we're trying to-
you've got the purpose and authority established, and then how we administer it. This is a 9-person committee with a couple members of the planning board, a person from the Readfield Enterprise, a person from the Age Friendly Committee, one from the Conservation or Trails Committee, one member of the Select Board, and up to 3 at-large registered Readfield voters. My input on the committee organization would be that the planning board member and the select board member, they may be interchangeable, just simply because of terms ending. If somebody starts out the project, it's possible that could change. With that said, they may be knowledgeable enough that we would then ask them to serve as sort of an ad hoc additional alternate member to help complete the project. And I would say on the Conservation Commission or Trails Committee, I would probably say the Conservation Commission is a little bit more involved in the visioning. I certainly value trails and so on and so forth, but I think conservation does look out for that particular entity. And I would really like to see somebody from the Conservation Commission come to that committee.
Which doesn't preclude a at-large member being someone who is on the Trails Committee.
No, not
And
at all.
Greg Drigan's on both, so
Yeah, he could
I've
be
got a
double.
prospect in mind.
He could be
And I'd
double.
just like to mention that there is one non-voting member in the town manager on that
Right,
committee.
correct.
It's on the top of the next page.
So I basically like this layout. The very last item, reporting to the select board, a minimum of quarterly, we could discuss perhaps that could be in writing with an option for a call-in rather than just making somebody come in and just give us an update quarterly when there might be a slower piece of time or whatever, but get a written update and we will call them in as needed. And I would also make that report go to the planning board as well, CC to the planning board, or addressed to both the planning board and select board.
And I really like task 3, which is a clear, detailed, and time-limited process. I like the way that our budget committee calendar is laid out each year. There are specific tasks with dates and times listed so that people know when they're getting involved, what's going to be expected of them. I think you usually pick those dates once you have your committee. Is that correct?
That's
You
correct.
make sure that you're
yeah.
picking days and times that work for the people who are involved. But I think it's really important to the completion and the smooth running to have a laid out plan, and that has worked really well with budget.
When do we expect to charge this committee and actually have its first meeting? And I know this goes along with KV Cog being our consultant. They're probably very eager for us to get going.
They are, and I am as well. I'm very excited about this process. I've been talking about visioning and community development for a few years now, and really looking at different options, including the heart and soul process, and some things that just didn't work out, but this is a good fit. This is something that we've done a few times in the past, this whole update process. And in the past, it has been led primarily by the planning board with a similar approach of bringing other people in, but it really was put in their lap. And this time around, we're looking to take a little bit broader approach from the beginning and lessen some of that burden on that one committee and broaden the input. But my hope is that if the board is happy with this draft, that I can send it out to the various boards and committees and advertise and start making appointments as soon as we get recommendations in from the committees and the public.
I'm happy with the draft with a couple of tweaks that I mentioned.
Okay.
And I'd like us to maybe move this and ask for having appointments by the end of October at the latest so that it gets started right away.
Yeah, I think it's got to be a full court press because we can't do anything until we have the committee.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Right.
Do it.
I mean, I would suggest sooner, but I know people can't do that possibly.
Right. And you know, this is a huge way that you can be involved in the long-term effectiveness of planning in our town. It's a great opportunity to volunteer. It's a great opportunity to have your voice about town heard. Please volunteer for this because it's a legacy opportunity, I feel like.
Right. And it brings in all different voices that can be heard.
Absolutely.
Just noting, the comprehensive plan gets voted on at town meeting by the public at large, by registered voters.
And this is a 2-year commitment.
It's a 2-year commitment, and it truly is a steering committee. This isn't the committee that's going to be making all the decisions. They're going to be gathering public input very broadly. I think I even said intentionally aggressively gathering or something to that effect.
Right.
Public input and public participation are huge parts of this, and this committee just helps direct and consolidate that information in that process. So
With KV Cog being the one who keeps people moving along,
absolutely, yeah,
Right.
there are supports.
instead of the
support
planning
entity.
board or the select board.
Yep.
Do we need a motion?
I mean, I'm fine with consensus on that makeup, but let's go ahead and make it official then.
I'll make a motion to approve the comprehensive plan update and update committee paper as presented in our packet with a couple of additions or changes as specified by Bruce and a recommended date for all committee members to be appointed by the end of October of this 2020.
Second?
Okay, the motion's on the floor. It's been seconded, so there are a couple of minor edits that will be done that I believe the board understands. Is there any additional discussion on the motion? All in favor? It's a vote. I will say that the appointment timeline is aspirational. I mean, obviously, we have to get volunteers and so on and so forth. So with that in mind, at the next select board meeting, we will be appointing a member of the select board to go on this. So
Oh, and since I'm doing broadband already, I guess I won't be doing.
Can only
we'll
spread
get all your
yourself so
excuses.
thin.
We'll get all your excuses later. But in any case,
Not so fast.
the next item on the agenda is to hear a report from the recent select board retreat. I'm going to be very brief on this because what I will be doing is giving a written report to the select board so that they can make any corrections in their understanding of what we decided at the retreat, and then we will formally adopt goals either at the first or second meeting in October. So basically the recap, we did have our retreat, it was on the 10th, is that correct?
8.
The 8th?
Tuesday.
The 8th here, and it was a very good process. We did not have a lot of public here, but we did have some. We took a look at our goals from 2020, and we believed that we accomplished what we needed to in our governance goal. The broadband goal that we had established in last year was multi-year in nature, so that's continuing. The solar goal is that has not been completed, but we have a desire to finalize that. The construction goal, for now, it's kind of marked as complete. We obviously know that we're in the wrapping up process, but the bond was done. The vast majority of the work has been done. Marijuana, we did submit to the public the ordinance and the menu of choices in that ordinance, so that was done. The sidewalk is a multi-year, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Parks and Rec, that particular goal, we feel we need to reconstitute how that's done. Local farms and food ordinance, we completed that and it passed. The elder tax program, we completed that goal in terms of the examination. It wasn't a change, but we did examine the process and see a challenge in making sure we promote our own tools that we existingly have to assist with tax assistance as necessary. So for FY21, there were 8 goals. The governance documents goal review is all board members and Eric with Dennis helping us schedule a look at these by quarter. So that's an ongoing goal. It's always been one of our goals, I think, ever since we started doing this. Broadband, Catherine, Bruce, and Ralph will be working on that, the 1 to 2 year horizon on that. Solar, that's all board members. We would like to make a decision on what, this is about solar for the town's electricity. This is not the solar project that's being talked about in town or any other solar projects that might be happening, but how the town might make use of solar. So we'd like to kind of finalize that this year. I mean, that could be a finalization without any action because we determined it's not something we're going to act on, or it could be final with we are going to put a set of panels at the transfer station, for example. The sidewalk, we talked about that. This is on Church Street to finalize the connection in town. We'd like to fast track that. We're taking a look at what alternatives and what engineering might need to be done and checking our budget authority on that. Parks and Rec, Dennis, Bruce, and I will be, Dennis, Bruce, and I. That's pretty good.
Split person.
It's very possible we might be doing something down the road as part of an improvements bond, I quote unquote an improvements bond. But now with the beach being broadly supported as being a public access to all, we need to determine how we're going to do that and make that property be able to sustain its use and be that attribute to the community that we wish for it to be and that people in town would like. The comp plan, this is all boards member of the planning board. It's within our goals. Obviously, it's a process that's ongoing, but it is one of the goals we have. The salt and sand shed, Eric is stuck with determining the necessary engineering and checking budget authority on that. And then we also want to take a look at the pension plan for employees with Ralph and Chris and Teresa's involvement too. This would be in a year. And the only goal there is to see if we can improve the plan for employees, both on the participation and retention of employees level. So this is not a plan to modify it or make it less expensive or something like that. This is really to see what we might be able to do to enhance it. So that's just kind of a recap report, if you will, of the retreat and the outcome of the goal setting. There broadly were some other items that were discussed as well that we won't be pursuing, but I will have a written report on this for the next meeting, and the goals will be organized for a vote of approval. Any questions or anything I omitted? Thank you. I have one item that I want to just add to the agenda, if I could, please. And should have mentioned this up front. It's a very, very brief item, though.
Should I extend the meeting?
No.
Talk fast.
Put me under the gun. KV Cog is having their annual meeting on the 22nd. I just got that today. It was bizarre. And I'm not going to attend. It's an in-person meeting, and I've decided not to attend. I am the representatives, but if somebody else wants to go, it's really a very pro forma meeting. The generalists, I always do enjoy going because I'm able to talk with a number of people from other towns. But in this case, I think, their budget approval and everything's very straightforward. So I don't think it's a necessary meeting. And plus I have a conflict as well. So that's one of the drivers. If somebody wants to go, they can contact me and we'll make sure that happens. It's the 22nd. We also would be casting a ballot for a slate of directors. These are folks from different towns who have volunteered for this, very similar to the MMA. I would ask the board to authorize me to cast our vote for that slate. One of the new appointees to the directors is Eric Dyer.
Which I found out today in the mail. because
Did
they
you
called-
find that out?
they
I was
called me and
thinking,
asked if I was
when did he
interested, and I said-
volunteer for that?
Well, they called and asked if I was interested, and I said, sure, let's talk. And someone was supposed to call me and ask, tell me what the duties were and all that.
Do you want me to vote for you? I could leave that one
Absolutely,
blank.
yes, vote
I'm
for
going to
me.
make a motion to extend the meeting for another 5 minutes.
Okay.
Seconded?
All in favor?
Thank you.
I'm going to
Okay,
beat the
continue.
5 minutes, so.
So I'll make a motion to authorize Bruce to sign the ballot to vote for KB Cog on behalf of the select board.
Second.
Fine. Good, I'll do that. All in favor? And that's no mystery. I mean, I would go in person and cast it at your house, so it's just really getting it sent in. And I can also share with you if you want to see that ballot. The schedule for the upcoming select board meetings, we want to get that through the final quarter of the year. By the way, Dennis, you'll be taking over October 1st as the reviewer of the treasurer's
Yes,
warrant.
thank you very much. I appreciate
Which
that.
Teresa now has ready for you on Thursday and sometimes
Heavens to
on
Betsy.
Friday.
That is
Big
wonderful.
warrant.
I love that.
Yeah.
So we were talking about 2 October meetings, right? Eric?
Yes.
Yes.
And I think probably we will have enough business for 2. So those dates were,
13th and the 26th is what I'm showing.
So the 13th is a Tuesday because of the holiday the day before.
Yep,
So Tuesday, the 13th, and Monday, the 26th.
yes.
Okay, are we going over the meetings right now? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Did I just mean, okay, so the next one is October 5th and October
No,
19th?
13th
Oh,
and
God,
the 26th.
the day after Indigenous People, okay. So it's a Tuesday.
Yes.
Yeah, it's holiday for town.
Okay.
And this
Yeah.
is, that schedule certainly could be modified. It just follows the current financial calendar that we're on.
Okay.
Which is helpful. But
So we have a 3-week
not
gap
required.
is all I'm saying. Okay. Yep.
Oh,
yeah.
we should only have 2.
For the 2-week, yeah.
Well,
From now until then.
Well, we have a meeting on the 28th.
Oh, but we've been meeting monthly.
oh, there's a meeting on the 28th?
Is there?
No,
No,
No.
it's just Yom Kippur. So that's what I'm saying. That's why it looked weird. I thought we had done the 5th because then it would be 2 weeks.
Oh, well, you and I talked about it.
Right.
We did talk about the 5th.
Yeah, and then the 19th then puts us back on that.
But
So,
you're
so once
off
again, just to review,
you're off on your
warrants.
financial.
But that's okay.
It's
Information
immaterial.
supported.
yeah. But I'm just saying,
All right,
The 5th and the
what's it
2nd
gonna
It
be?
would be easier, the 5th and then the 5th and the 19th. Those Tuesday meetings are always hard.
Okay, so let's do
5th and the
5th
19th.
and the 19th. And then in November and December, I believe we only need 1 meeting.
Yep.
November's always hard because of the number of holidays and we have the election as well. And so I think.
We want to meet after Election Day, obvious?
Yep.
Okay.
So if we're meeting on the 19th of October,
I would go to 16th perhaps,
That looks good. It's in
Yeah.
between.
The 16th of November?
November.
Yep.
And then for December, and this does not preclude having a workshop thrown in there if we need to have one. So the 14th of December?
yes, that would work. And it allows the public to have a chance to plan on when these meetings are, so if they can be posted on the website calendar.
Oh, yeah, and I'll put them on the book.
Could I have a motion to adjourn, please?
I move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
A minute ahead of your 5 minutes.